The sound of laughter. A low, hushed giggle that didn't belong to me. It slithered through the crack in our bedroom door, mixing with the faint creak of bedsprings and the deep, husky murmur of a man who sure as hell wasn't me. I froze mid-step in the hallway, my stomach twisting into a knot so tight it felt like barbed wire. My hands balled into fists. The world around me shrank, vision narrowing until the only thing that existed was that half-open door, mocking me, daring me to step inside and witness my own humiliation. I didn't knock. I didn't call out her name. I barged in. The sight hit me like a sledgehammer to the gut. My wife, Jessica, my Jessica, was tangled up in the sheets with some Jimbro-looking bastard, his sweaty, muscle-bound arms wrapped around her like he had any right to touch what was mine. Her blonde hair was a tangled mess, lips swollen from kissing, and she gasped when she saw me, scrambling back against the headboard like a cornered animal. The man barely had time to react. His eyes widened, but before he could speak, before he could even attempt some pathetic excuse, I moved. I launched forward and drove the heel of my shoe straight into his groin. He let out a strangled, pathetic whimper, half scream, half gasp, as he collapsed onto the floor, clutching his ruined manhood. His face turned a sickly shade of gray, his body convulsing in agony. I barely registered the dark stain of blood spreading on the carpet. Good. Jessica shrieked, lunging toward me, but I was already on her. My fingers twisted into her hair, yanking her off the bed with a force that ripped a fresh scream from her throat. She bit my hand, actually bit me, but I didn't let go. Instead, I leaned in, voice a low, deadly growl. "You think you can take me on?" My grip tightened, and she whimpered. "Then get ready to face all my fury." Her chest heaved, blue eyes wide with something that wasn't fear, but rage. Pure, burning rage, as if I was the one who had just been caught violating our marriage vows. "Let me go, you psycho," she spat, nails clawing at my arm. "Have you lost your damn mind?" I shoved her away, and she stumbled, catching herself against the dresser. The second she found her footing, her face twisted into something ugly, something bitchy, a smirk that made my blood boil. "Oh, grow the hell up, Ethan," she sneered, tossing her hair back like she wasn't naked and caught cheating. "You're acting like a child." I stared at her, my chest heaving, fists clenching so hard my knuckles ached. "I walked in on you screwing another guy in our bed," I said, voice sharp enough to cut steel. "And I'm the one acting like a child?" Jessica rolled her eyes. Rolled her goddamn eyes. "Oh, don't be so dramatic," she scoffed. "You and I both know things have been off between us." She gestured vaguely between us, like she was discussing the weather. "I mean, come on, Ethan. This marriage has been dead for a while now." I was just. Just what? I cut her off, stepping closer, my whole body trembling with barely contained fury. "Just entertaining yourself? Just spreading your legs for the first meathead dumb enough to fall for your bullshit?" Her smirk faltered, just for a second. But then she squared her shoulders, crossing her arms over her chest like she had the upper hand in this situation. "You know what?" she snapped. Yeah. Yeah, I did. Because unlike you, Zach actually pays attention to me. Unlike you, he doesn't spend all his time working late or glued to a damn screen. Unlike you, he knows how to make a woman feel wanted. The words were a slap across the face. My pulse roared in my ears, my vision flashing red. I turned toward Zach, who was still curled up on the floor, wheezing like a dying animal. He looked up at me, eyes wet with pain, lips trembling. I crouched down, voice cold. "You better start praying, buddy." His Adam's apple bobbed. Look, man, I grabbed his collar and yanked him close, cutting off whatever pitiful excuse he was about to whimper out. "You knew she was married," I snarled. "And you still did this." I didn't." I drove my fist into his face. Hard. His head snapped back with a sickening crack. Blood splattered across the white sheets. Jessica screamed, but I didn't care. I stood, staring down at the mess in front of me, my whole body shaking. Jessica lunged at me, shoving me with all her strength. "Get the hell out," she screamed. "You're insane." I turned to her, breathing hard. "I want you out of my house," I said, my voice low, controlled. "Dangerous. By tomorrow morning. If you're still here when I wake up, you'll wish I only threw you out." She stared at me, jaw clenched, chest rising and falling rapidly. Then she laughed. "You want me out?" She gestured around, scoffing. "This is my house too, Ethan. I'm not going anywhere." I exhaled slowly. "Fine," I said. "Then enjoy your night with Zach. Because when I'm done with you, you'll have nothing left." And with that, I turned and walked out. But this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The door slammed behind me, rattling the damn walls. My chest was heaving, my fists still aching from the impact of Zach's smug, cheating face. The bastard was probably still curled up on the floor, whimpering like the pathetic sack of garbage he was. But Jessica? Oh no. That bitch was standing tall, defiant, looking at me like I was the villain in this whole mess. I stepped outside, sucking in the cold night air, my mind spinning. My pulse was hammering so hard I could barely hear anything except the blood roaring in my ears. I needed to get out of there. Away from the scent of betrayal, away from the walls that now felt tainted by her filth. I climbed into my truck, gripping the wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. Drive. Just drive. The engine roared to life, and I peeled out of the driveway like a bat out of hell. I didn't even know where I was going, I just needed distance. The betrayal clung to me like the stench of something rotten. 10 years. 10 goddamn years. We had built a life together. I had given her everything. Every late night, every sacrifice, every moment I spent thinking I was working toward something for us. And all along, she was spreading her legs for whatever idiot made her feel wanted. The streetlights blurred past. The rage wasn't fading. If anything, it was getting worse, boiling up inside me like a volcano ready to blow. My phone buzzed. I glanced at it. Jessica. I let out a bitter laugh. I swiped to decline, but before I could throw the phone onto the passenger seat, another call came through. Not Jessica this time. Logan. I picked up. "Where are you?" My best friend's voice was sharp, urgent. I exhaled heavily. "Driving." Jesus Christ, Ethan. What the hell happened? I swallowed. My throat was dry, raw from yelling. From breaking. She was in our bed. With some guy. I beat the shit out of him. Told her to get out. Silence. Then Logan exhaled sharply. "Tell me where you are. Now." I hesitated, my grip tightening on the wheel. "I don't know, man. Just, somewhere." "Ethan." His voice dropped. Low. Serious. "Pull the hell over. I mean it." Something about the way he said it, the edge in his tone, made me listen. I veered off into an empty parking lot, the truck rumbling as it settled into place. I slumped back in the seat, my breath coming in hard, ragged bursts. "She's calling me," I muttered. Logan let out a humorless chuckle. "Yeah. Because she knows she's screwed." "What's she saying?" I haven't answered. "Good. Don't." I clenched my jaw, staring blankly out the windshield. What the hell do I do now? There was a pause. Then Logan said, "You don't go back there. Not tonight. Not ever, if you can help it." The words hit me hard. Not go back. That house was mine. Ours. Everything I had built, everything I had worked for, was in that place. And now? It felt like a crime scene. She said she's not leaving, I said flatly. Logan snorted. She'll leave when the lawyers make her. I let out a slow breath. Lawyers. The reality of it all was sinking in, slamming into me with the force of a freight train. I had just lost my wife. No. I hadn't lost her. She had thrown herself away. And for what? Some random guy who probably didn't even know her middle name? Who wouldn't be there when she got sick, when life got hard, when she wasn't young and perfect anymore? I scrubbed a hand over my face. The anger was still there, simmering just beneath the surface, but something else was creeping in now. Something darker. Hurt. Betrayal. I had been a fool. The phone buzzed again. Another call. Another desperate attempt from the woman who had just wrecked everything. Then a text. Ethan, we need to talk. I stared at the screen, my fingers twitching with the urge to hurl the phone out the window. Talk? Now she wanted to talk. Where was that energy when she was rolling around with Zach, moaning his name in my bed? Where was the need to talk when she was looking me in the eye every damn day and lying to my face? Another text. It's not what you think. I let out a laugh. A harsh, bitter thing that didn't even sound like me. Not what I think. Oh, so she wasn't cheating? She just tripped and landed on his dick? Another text. I was going to tell you. But I didn't want to hurt you. Oh, now that was rich. I fired back. Didn't want to hurt me? You were riding another guy in our bed, Jessica. 3 dots appeared. Then disappeared. Then came back. Then finally, her response. Can we just talk? I exhaled through my nose. She still didn't get it. There was no talking after something like this. She had taken a wrecking ball to everything we had, and now she wanted to talk. No. I made a decision right then and there. I wasn't going to answer her calls. I wasn't going to let her spin some pathetic excuse. And I sure as hell wasn't going to let her cry her way out of this. This wasn't a fight. This wasn't some argument we could fix. This was war. And Jessica was about to find out exactly what that meant. The night air was cold, but my skin burned. My hands gripped the wheel so tight my fingers ached, but I didn't feel it. Jessica had ripped something out of me tonight. Something vital. But she hadn't taken everything. The phone vibrated again. Another text. Another pathetic attempt to spin this into something smaller than it was. Jessica, Ethan, please. Just come home. Let's talk. I can explain. Explain? What the hell was left to explain? I was done sitting still. Done letting her control the narrative. I started the engine. Instead of driving aimlessly, I knew exactly where I was going. The house wasn't far, big place, gated, the kind of home owned by guys who lifted weights more than they read books. And sure enough, his car was there, parked in the driveway like it belonged. I climbed out of my truck, my boots crunching against the gravel. My heart was a drum in my chest. The bastard was inside. I was going to finish what I started. The porch light was on, mocking me, casting long shadows as I walked up to the door. I didn't knock. Didn't hesitate. I kicked the damn thing in. The door exploded inward, slamming against the wall with a crack. Inside, Zach was on the couch, shirtless, an ice pack pressed against his bruised jaw. He jumped, eyes wide, pure terror flashing across his face. Jesus Christ. I was already on him. He barely had time to drop the ice pack before my fist connected with his face. The impact sent him sprawling backward over the coffee table, knocking over a half-empty beer. He groaned, clutching his nose, blood already trickling down his lip. "Ethan, man, listen." I grabbed him by the collar, yanking him up so our faces were inches apart. "You thought I was done?" My voice was low, steady, deadly. His hands clawed at mine, desperate. I didn't mean. I slammed him against the wall. Hard. The drywall cracked behind him. Didn't mean to what? Didn't mean to screw my wife? Didn't mean to get caught? He whimpered. A grown-ass man, and he whimpered. Pathetic. You knew she was married. My grip tightened. And you did it anyway. She said, he coughed, shaking. She said you guys were over. She said it was complicated. I let out a cold, humorless laugh. Oh yeah? She tell you that in between moaning your name? Zach flinched, guilt flashing across his bruised face. Coward. My fist itched to finish him off, but something stopped me. Not mercy. No, not that. Realization. Zach was nothing. Just another idiot caught in Jessica's web of lies. He wasn't the real enemy. She was. I let go. Zach crumpled to the floor, gasping, rubbing his neck like I'd almost killed him. And maybe I had considered it. But he wasn't worth it. I turned, walking back toward the door. And that's when I heard her voice. Ethan? I froze. Jessica stood in the doorway, wearing one of her tight little dresses, heels clicking against the tile. Her arms were crossed, but her expression wasn't one of guilt. It was annoyance. Like I was inconveniencing her. You've got to be kidding me, she muttered, shaking her head. Are you out of your damn mind? I exhaled slowly, turning to face her. I don't know, Jess. You tell me. I walk in on you screwing this clown, and I'm the one who's crazy? She scoffed, stepping inside, her heels clicking with every arrogant step. Jesus, Ethan, you're so dramatic. This? She gestured between us. This was inevitable. You and I both know it. Something inside me snapped. Inevitable? I took a step forward, and for the first time, I saw a flicker of something in her eyes. Not fear. No, Jessica wasn't afraid of me. She was afraid of consequences. You stood in a church, I said, voice low, trembling with rage. You looked me in the eye. You swore forever. She rolled her eyes. Rolled her damn eyes. Oh my God, Ethan. Do you ever stop whining? Zach, still on the floor, tried to crawl away, but I wasn't looking at him anymore. I was looking at her. And I saw it all so clearly now. The lies. The manipulation. The absolute lack of remorse. She never loved me. Not really. I had been convenient. A good man. A safe bet. And when that wasn't exciting enough, she found someone else. I let out a slow breath. The rage was still there, but now it was sharp. Controlled. You're right, I said finally. Jessica blinked. What? I took a step closer. You're right, I repeated, nodding. This was inevitable. She opened her mouth, probably to throw out some sarcastic remark, but I didn't let her. I pulled my phone from my pocket and turned the screen toward her. She froze. Her face drained of color. The screen was open to my email. An attachment was downloading. The divorce papers. I had them drawn up an hour ago, I said smoothly, watching her expression shift from confidence to panic. Wait. You'll get them in the morning. I tucked my phone away. And trust me, sweetheart, I'll make sure you don't see a damn penny. Jessica took a step back. Ethan, let's let's not do anything rash, okay? Oh, now you want to talk. I let out a cold laugh. Now that I'm walking away. She reached for me. I stepped back. You wanted Zach? I gestured to the man still groaning on the floor. You got him. Then I turned. Walked past her. Past them. And out into the night. This time, I wasn't running. I was free. The night air hit me like a slap to the face, sharp and cold, but I welcomed it. It was real, unlike everything I had been living in for the past 10 years. I stepped off Zach's porch and didn't look back. Jessica didn't chase me. She knew. She had lost. But this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. I climbed into my truck, hands steady now, mind clearer than it had been in hours. The divorce papers were already in motion, but that wasn't enough. Jessica wasn't the type to just let go, not when she realized what she was about to lose. And I had no doubt she'd try something. As I drove, my phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't Jessica. Logan. I picked up, putting him on speaker. You still breathing? His voice was sharp, edged with tension. I exhaled. Barely. You do something stupid? I thought about Zach's busted nose, the way his body hit the floor. The way Jessica's face had drained of color when she saw the divorce papers. Nothing I'll regret. Logan sighed. You coming here, or you gonna drive all night until your gas tank's as empty as your marriage? A humorless chuckle escaped me. That's poetic. I try. I turned onto the highway. Yeah, I'm coming. Good. I'll get the whiskey. Logan didn't live far, 15 minutes, tops. But as I drove, headlights flashed in my mirror. Bright. Close. Too close. I frowned, shifting lanes. The car behind me did the same. I sped up. So did they. Coincidence? Maybe. But my gut said otherwise. I clenched my jaw and pushed the gas pedal harder. The truck roared forward, tires gripping the pavement, but the car behind me wasn't backing off. Then, just as I was about to take the next exit, the car swerved, slamming into my rear bumper. The impact jerked my body forward, my seatbelt digging into my chest. My tires screeched, the whole truck lurching as I fought for control. What the? Logan's voice crackled through the speaker. Some psycho just hit me. I snarled, gripping the wheel. Who? I didn't know. I didn't have time to figure it out. The car rammed me again. This time, harder. I cursed, yanking the wheel to steady myself. The truck veered, but I kept it on the road. Enough was enough. I slammed the brakes. The sudden stop sent my pursuer skidding past me, tires screeching against the asphalt. For a split second, I saw the driver's face through their window. And my blood ran cold. Jessica. Her eyes were wild, filled with a rage I had never seen before. Her mouth was moving, screaming something, but I couldn't hear it over the sound of her tires fighting for grip. Then she lost control. Her car spun, fishtailing wildly before slamming into the guardrail with a sickening crunch of metal. Silence. For a moment, everything froze. I stared at the wreck, my pulse pounding in my ears. Then, movement. Jessica's door flung open, and she stumbled out, barefoot, her dress twisted, hair a mess. But she wasn't hurt. No. She was furious. She stormed toward me, her face twisted in something between rage and desperation. Ethan, you son of a bitch, she screamed. I stepped out of my truck, slamming the door behind me. Are you out of your damn mind? She was breathing hard, her chest rising and falling like she had just run a marathon. You think you can just leave me? You think you can walk away? I stared at her. And in that moment, I knew. Jessica wasn't just a cheater. She was unstable. A narcissist. A manipulator. And now that she had lost control, she was dangerous. I already did, I said coldly. Her face contorted, her hands clenching into fists. No. No, you don't get to do this to me. You don't get to just throw me away like I'm nothing. I let out a bitter laugh. Like how you threw us away. That hit her. For a brief second, she faltered. Then she lunged. I barely dodged in time. She swung at me, nails aiming for my face, but I grabbed her wrists, pushing her back. Get off me, she shrieked, thrashing like a wild animal. I let go, and she stumbled, nearly falling to the ground. This is pathetic, I muttered, shaking my head. You cheated, Jessica. You. Not me. And now you're out here trying to run me off the road like some lunatic? Her breathing was ragged. I just wanted to talk. I scoffed. Bullshit. She opened her mouth to argue, but sirens wailed in the distance. Jessica froze. Red and blue lights flashed, reflecting off the twisted wreckage of her car. The cops were coming. Her face twisted, panic flickering in her eyes. And for the first time, I saw fear. Not of me. Of consequences. I stepped back, crossing my arms as two squad cars screeched to a stop. Jessica turned to me, desperate. Ethan, please. I didn't say a word. Two officers stepped out, one already reaching for his cuffs. Sir, are you okay? The first one asked me. I nodded. I'm fine. The second officer turned to Jessica. Ma'am, we got multiple reports of reckless driving and a possible hit and run. We need you to step aside. Jessica started shaking her head, backing away. No, you don't understand. He made me do it. Ma'am. The cop's voice hardened. Turn around. She looked at me. I met her gaze, unflinching. And then. The cuffs clicked around her wrists. Jessica shrieked, thrashing against the officers, but it was over. I exhaled slowly. Watched as they dragged her toward the squad car. Watched as she screamed my name. Watched as the door slammed shut. The chaos of the night still buzzed around me, but for the first time in hours, maybe even years, I felt something deep in my bones. Relief. Freedom. And as I turned away, climbing back into my truck, one thing was clear. Jessica thought she could break me. But she had only freed me. I watched the squad car disappear into the night, Jessica still screaming inside, her voice muffled by the steel and glass. And just like that, she was gone. I leaned against my truck, taking a long breath. My pulse was still hammering, but it wasn't rage anymore. It was something else. Something lighter. I had spent years carrying the weight of that woman, her lies, her games. And in the end, she had undone herself. Poetic. The second cop approached me. You sure you're good? I nodded. Better than I've been in a long time. He studied me for a second, then gave a slow nod. You should get yourself home. Something tells me you've had a hell of a night. That was an understatement. As the cops pulled away, I climbed back into my truck, my hands steady now. Logan's voice came through the speaker again. Dude. What the hell just happened? I let out a sharp breath. Jessica just tried to run me off the damn road. Silence. Then, laughter. Not a normal laugh. A full-bodied, holy shit this is insane laugh. Bro. Your wife just went full psycho. Ex-wife, I corrected. Logan whistled. Damn right. Where are you now? I glanced around. The road was empty. Jessica was gone. I'll be there in 15. Whiskey's ready. I hung up and pulled back onto the road. 15 minutes later, I was sitting on Logan's porch, whiskey in hand. Logan leaned back in his chair, shaking his head. So she really tried to take you out, huh? Guess she figured if she couldn't have me, nobody could. Logan let out a low whistle. And people say marriage is boring. I snorted. Trust me, nothing about that marriage was boring. Just exhausting. He took a sip of his drink, watching me. So what now? I thought about that. The divorce was in motion. Jessica was in handcuffs. My house, our house, was still filled with her crap, but that was just stuff. It didn't mean anything anymore. For the first time in years, I had no obligations. No expectations. Just freedom. I took another sip. I don't know. Logan smirked. Well, that's a first. I chuckled. Yeah. It is. Silence settled between us, but it wasn't uncomfortable. Just the quiet of two old friends who had seen too much, lived through too much. Then a car pulled up. I stiffened for half a second, but it wasn't Jessica. It was Emily. Logan's sister. She stepped out, brown hair falling over her shoulder, eyes sharp and full of something I couldn't quite name. Jesus, Ethan, she said, stepping onto the porch. I just heard. You okay? I shrugged. Define okay. She studied me, then smirked. Well, you're not dead, so I guess that's a start. Logan snorted. Barely. Psycho almost ran him into a ditch. Emily sighed, shaking her head. God, I never liked her. I let out a dry chuckle. You weren't alone. She hesitated, then sat down beside me. Close. Closer than I expected. For a second, something passed between us. Something unspoken. Emily had always been around, but I had never really seen her. Not like this. And now, for the first time, I did. She smiled slightly. So. You're officially free? I met her gaze. And for the first time in years, I smiled back. The whiskey burned in the best way possible, but nothing compared to the fire in my chest, the kind that only comes from finally being free. Jessica was gone. For good this time. And no matter what she pulled, no matter how much she screamed or begged or threatened, she couldn't change that. Logan leaned back in his chair, watching me with a smirk. You look different, man. I raised an eyebrow. Different how? He shrugged. Like you just came back from war. I huffed out a laugh. Feels like it. Emily was still sitting next to me, one leg tucked under the other, her glass resting on her knee. She wasn't saying much, but I could feel her watching me. I wasn't sure what to do with that yet. Or maybe I did. I glanced at my phone. No new messages. No calls. No fake apologies from Jessica. Just silence. It was beautiful. Logan lifted his glass. To new beginnings. I clinked my glass against his, then Emily's. To finally being done with crazy, I muttered. Logan snorted. I'll drink to that. We knocked back our drinks, and for the first time in years, I wasn't drowning in bitterness. I was just breathing. I didn't know what came next. And for the first time, that didn't scare me.